Hello, I am Dennis Smith. I am the founder of Firehouse Magazine. I am the founder of wavepeg.com, and I am the founding chairman of the New York City Fire Department Museum. San Bernardino. We all lived through this terrible time, and we have grieved profoundly. I pray for the parents of those 14 men and women who did nothing more but go to a holiday luncheon. And I think of the extraordinary work of the San Bernardino Police Department and the way those policemen presented such situational command and such extraordinary courage. So, what do we do for those people? What do we owe them? Well, we owe them what we owe all Americans, and that is to keep them safe. And I don't think that we can do that. There were 35 good and hard-working people lying there in the blood on the ground when the police arrived. 14 of them were gone. And what of the broken promise of all the politicians in America who promised to keep them safe? How are they accountable? How did I fail? How did we all fail? Here's my failure. I am stupefied that this horrible killing of 14 and maiming of 21 is occurring just a day or two after the President of the United States gave a thunderous speech about global warming, just a mile away from the site where 130 people were murdered by violent, radical, and ignorant Islamist thugs and murderers. In his Paris speech, the President lamented, "The permafrost thaws and the tundra burns. I grieve for the friends and loved ones of those French victims, and I would not have been able to cast their grief aside so soon, especially to talk about a problem that will take a decade to solve, or decades. Global warming. I think I, as a writer, failed to send a message to the world. I think I failed in my responsibility to write the truth, that the President of the United States is willing enough to kill Muslims in Syria with unmanned drones, but because of his political predisposition to safeguard Muslims from any criticism in America, he cannot be confident of his own ability to trust himself to keep us safe. Every American writer knows this, and we, should have written about it immediately, and we did not. The President took an oath to protect all of us. We must demand that our leadership keep us safe from these dirty murderers, and not shift the action of every murder committed by Islamists to more immediate political concerns, the way Hillary Clinton did yesterday and President Obama did by inserting gun control as the reason for these heinous murders. Hey, Mr. President, we really need to inform you. It wasn't gun control that killed those 141 people in the Paris Music Hall, the restaurants, and Charlie Hebdo office, or those 52 people on the subways and bus in London, or those 191 people on the train in Spain, or the nearly 3,000 people killed on 9/11. You know what it was, that two-word phrase that you have never uttered because you do not want to say it. Islamist terrorists were the cause of all of those violent, awful deaths. Please get real. Mr. President, your staff should suggest that you study the photographs of all of those bodies in France, England, Spain, and America. I am not being disrespectful. I just feel that being older than you, I have something to teach you. And that is your way of seeing everything through your ideological prism has harmed the world astoundingly. No one could have predicted what you have done to bring the world to such decline through your inaction, Your refusal to be critical of anything Islamic in a world where Islam is creating such turmoil, even as you found the inclination to criticize the Crusades. In California yesterday, we saw a high, commendable level of what our first responders did. They know what it is to look at dead bodies. I know what it is to have seen many dead bodies and realize each time that those deaths could have been avoided. And there is the rub, Mr. President. I do not believe that you have done anywhere near enough to add to a needed peace between Muslims and the rest of the world. Through your prism, you do not see anything wrong within Islam. And yet, all this time you could have successfully called for the reform of the radicalizing language that's found in the books of Islamic scripture, just like President el-Sisi of Egypt has done with great courage. Why is President el-Sisi any more courageous than you? And all of those Muslim intellectuals in Al-Azhar, why are they more courageous than you? But you have more than a year left in office. You could do much in this year to change the world in the way that the world will get better and the comity between Muslims and the rest of the world will be advanced. You have done much to divide us. The opportunity exists to bring us together to stop these terrible and murderous attacks. Call for the reformation of Islam. Make Islam thrive again. Islam is in its dark age. It is not congenial to the modern world. It is an enemy of the modern world as long as it inspires so many to violence. It is not misleading interpretations that bring murder to the doorsteps of civilized people. I have read the Quran as many times as you have. I have knowledge, real knowledge, that you, of all people in the world, could bring historic change and an everlasting peace if you would cry out for Islamic reform. Demand a reformation, save lives, contribute something important to the history of your presidency. The FBI is now in charge. San Bernardino is an international tragedy. It is designated another attack by Islamists. I do not mean to take a shot across the White House bow in the wake of this tragedy, but this is all very much of a piece with the general sense that the fabric of the United States is not holding up. It is ripping all too often. Our police are strong, brave, and very well trained and educated. Our military too. They can handle the missions that are presented to them. Whatever we give them will be accomplished. But it is a different story with the politics. Some politicians, it is ever more obvious to all Americans, are much more committed to ideology than to truth or to sworn service. The police chiefs, like our Attorney General, are hired by politicians, and their first allegiance is to the person who hired them. But is it? They do take an oath of office, and they swear to uphold the law. But as we know, this oath does not stand for much if we remember certain events like Ferguson, the IRS, Baltimore, even the Chicago mayor, who has sat on evidence in a murder case for more than a year. The president has taken his oath twice to protect us and to protect the laws of America. Tragedy and management, to me and to most first responders, is all of that very same piece. Our president seems too out of touch to see how a civilized culture in America has declined under his watch, how the world has gotten more dangerous from Libya to the Crimea, from Iraq to Egypt to Syria, not to mention Europe and the United States. I believe the Nazis created the most dangerous social environment in history, but I remind you that they did not come into our parades in Boston. They did not come into our army bases in Texas. they did not come into our cafeterias in California to murder so many, so gruesomely, in such a short period of time. Our country will force the President of the United States to speak of safety, but I hope he remembers that this subject is more important to our near future than global warming and guns. But whatever you say, Mr. President, I ask you must leave your ideological predispositions in the face of actual and immediate human suffering and tragedy behind. This is the kind of suffering which is now, at this moment, as the holidays of all faiths approach, creating so much pain to those families of the 35 victims in San Bernardino. Change your mission, Mr. President, from gun control and global warming to a call for the reformation of Islam, and you will be known as the man who really changed the world. Thank you.